Good evening, friends. I'm Mr. Narratory, and I'll be your voice tonight as we ease into rest. If these videos help you unwind, take a moment to like and subscribe. It really supports the channel. And I'd love to know, where in the world are you listening from, and what time is it for you right now? Drop it in the comments below. Now, get comfortable, close your eyes if you'd like, because it's time for tonight's story. My cousin Ash was last seen outside a gas station 20 minutes off the main highway, somewhere between reality and nowhere. They were on a solo road tripone of those I need to find myself sabbaticals people take when they've got a little money and a lot of anxiety. They left me voice notes almost daily, quick stuff, updates, jokes, roadside oddities. The last one came in at 1:14 a.m. Yo, there's a town here that isn't on the map. Wakefield. Creepy as hell. Thought it was abandoned at first, but there's lights on. Gonna grab gas. Maybe crash somewhere. Tell Mom I'm fine. Talk soon. They never did. No follow-up message. No receipts. No phone ping after that. Ash just disappeared. 2 weeks passed before I did something reckless. I took time off work and traced their route based on credit card logs and time-stamped selfies. The last confirmed location was a greasy spoon 50 miles east of Wakefield if Wakefield even existed. It wasn't on Google Maps, GPS apps, county records. Just a space of winding, disconnected back roads and silence. So I drove, and about an hour into backwoods nothing. My car hit a stretch of cracked pavement with no signage, no mile markers, no names. Just one rusted arrow-shaped sign. Welcome to Wakefield. Est 1882. No population number. Just a smear of red paint across the bottom. Or maybe it wasn't paint. The town was small, 30 buildings at most. A diner, a gas station, a mechanic's garage, a church missing its steeple, and a meat shop Wakefield butchery. Dead center, bigger than everything else. I parked at the edge of the street and got out. The air smelled wrong, like smoke, like old pennies. The sidewalk under my boots felt soft in places, like something beneath it had rotted out. I walked toward the diner. Inside, 5 people. No music, no movement. All of them turned to look at me at once. No one spoke. Then slowly, the waitress stepped forward. She smiled, but her eyes didn't. "You're not from here?" I said I was looking for someone. Showed Ash's photo. She didn't even glance. "We don't get many visitors." She poured me coffee I didn't ask for. It tasted like copper. I asked again. Had anyone seen my cousin? She nodded barely. "People stop here. They leave. That's the way of Wakefield." Then she walked away. I didn't sleep in town. I drove 5 miles out and slept in the car. When I woke up, the road I came in on was gone. No, not gone. Different. The dirt was fresh. No tire tracks. Like I'd never arrived. I drove back into town. Walked block to block. Ash's car wasn't anywhere. But their face was spray painted across a rusted phone booth outside the butcher shop. Eyes crossed out. Mouth torn open. Underneath, one word: choice. The butcher shop hadn't been open yesterday. Now the door stood wide. No open sign, no bell. Just the sound of a dull blade dragging across meat. I stepped inside. The front was empty. Shelves of canned goods, long expired. A counter covered in brown paper and thick stains. The air was humid, metallic, and sharp with the smell of fresh blood. From the back room came a sound. Not music, not talking, but breathing. Slow, steady, heavy. I stepped closer. A shape moved behind the hanging strips of meat. Not a person, not fully. Too tall, too broad, too wet. It didn't look up, just kept cutting, slicing something into long, even pieces. Thick, soft slabs. Not beef, not pork. Something with fingers. I stepped back. The floor creaked. The shape froze. Then slowly raised its head. No face. Just a metal mask. Smooth. Red with rust. It turned toward me. One arm reaching behind the table. Grabbing something long. And serrated, I ran. Didn't look back. Didn't stop until I hit the diner again, panting, shaking. The waitress was waiting on the porch, still smiling. Now you've seen him. She lit a cigarette with a hand that was missing 2 fingers. You can leave if you want, but you won't. I drove in circles for hours trying to find the road out. Same rusted sign. Same church with no steeple. Same meat shop with the flickering closed sign that never actually turned off. The streets didn't loop, they just lied. I marked trees, changed turn, took GPS readings. It didn't matter. Wakefield was a trap disguised as a place. And worse, I could feel something watching. Not just watching, expecting. I broke into the butcher shop that night. Not out of bravery, out of desperation. The front was the same. Rotted produce case, faded newspaper clippings about local livestock sales that hadn't existed in 20 years. There were no freezers running, no generators humming. Yet, it always smelled freshly cleaned, just beneath the blood. I moved through slowly, stepped behind the counter. The cutting room was bigger than it should have been. Steel hooks dangled from chains in rows too perfect for comfort. No bodies on them, just remnants, fingers, scalp, a jaw with teeth still intact, lips gone. The table was drenched in dark liquid, not blood, not entirely, thicker, oilier, smelled like metal and mold. I kept going. There was a narrow door in the back, not marked, no knob, just an old hinge and a wooden handle. I pulled it open. The bone room. That's what it looked like. The walls were lined with skull hundreds of them stacked like bricks. Most were human. Some weren't. Some had extra sockets. Some were carved with symbols I didn't recognize. One had a pair of child-sized glasses, still resting on the bridge. The floor wasn't dirt. It was ash. Deep. I stepped forward, and my foot sank an inch. Then something cracked beneath my sole. I looked down. A rib. Fresh. No dust on it. No decay. And beside it, a tooth. Human, still bleeding. I turned to leave, but the door wasn't there anymore. Just solid wall. The skull stared. Some had teeth. Some had tongues. One had lips stitched shut, and a smile beneath it anyway. And then the room breathed. The skulls rattled like wind chimes. A low moan echoed from the walls, not angry, not sad hungry, and something spoke from inside the floor. It's your turn to give. I bolted across the room, stumbling, choking on ash and fear. A door appeared in the far corner, wood covered in scratch marks, a handle made from bone. I pulled it. The hallway beyond was dark, colder, but empty. No hooks, no meat, just a tunnel lit by red bulbs, one every 10 feet, stretching forever. On the wall next to me, someone had scrawled in thick black ink, "If you don't bleed, you don't belong." I followed it, had no choice. The tunnel felt like it wrapped under the entire town. Eventually, I came to a steel door marked simply, "Processing." I listened. Nothing. Pushed it open. Inside was a clean room, sterile white, lit by hanging bulbs and a single overhead light aimed at the center. There was a chair bolted to the floor, chains attached, a drain underneath, blood staining every corner, and on the table beside it, tools, not butcher knives, surgical, scalpels, spreaders, bone saws, syringes, a tape recorder. I pressed play. The voice crackled, deep and breathless. Subject 14 resisted. Skin unsuitable. Too much nerve damage. Rejected. Bled out before integration. Click. Subject 15 was compliant. Took the cut. Laughed while we peeled. Kept the tongue. Voice useful. Click. Subject 16, your cousin. Quiet, beautiful muscle structure. Heart beats slow. Good yield. Click. You came looking. Curious. Curious is always welcome. Click. Nothing. Just silence. And then, from behind me, I heard the chain on the chair rattle. I spun. No one there. Just blood and a smear of fingerprints across the white tile leading into another hallway. This one smelled worse. Burnt hair, acid, and beneath it meat. I followed the prints, came to a second room. This one darker, more like a chamber than a workspace. And in the center, under a tarp, a table full of parts. Not sorted, not clean, just stacked. Legs, arms, rib cages, eyeballs in jars, a jaw wired shut with fishing line, a heart in a bowl, still twitching. Pinned to the side wall in dry blood were words, "Everyone in Wakefield gives something, or they become something." I ran, didn't stop until I crashed through the back exit of the butcher shop and collapsed in the alley, gasping like I'd just come up from drowning in something thick and red and permanent. Across from me was a stray dog, matted fur, one eye. It just stared, then growled low and barked once, and I swear to God, it sounded exactly like Ash. I spent the night in my car, but I didn't sleep. Not after what I saw in the bone room. Not after the tape said my cousin's name like it was just another entry in a slaughterhouse logbook. Not after the dog barked in a voice I used to hear on voicemails and late-night calls and Christmas mornings. Ash is dead. No, Ash is here. What's left of them is somewhere in that butcher shop, or maybe part of that pile under the tarp, or sealed in one of the jars marked Tungu and Voice and Useful. And somehow whatever's running Wakefield knows I've figured that out. At sunrise, I stepped out of the car, still shaking. The diner was already open. The same waitress stood on the porch smoking again. Her apron was cleaner today. Her fingers had grown back. I didn't ask how. She looked me up and down, smirked. You smell like him now. I asked her what that meant. She blew smoke through her nose like a dragon that didn't care anymore. Once the butcher sees you, really sees you, he remembers. You walked through his walls. You tasted his air. You've been marked. I asked if that meant I was next. She shook her head. You're not meat yet, but you're close. I walked to the church. It was the only building I hadn't entered yet. The door groaned open like it was exhaling rot. Inside, it looked abandoned rows of broken pews, shattered stained glass, a pulpit burned black. The cross was gone. In its place, a butcher's hook hung from the rafters. On the floor beneath it, written in soot, bleed to belong. There was no Bible, just a book made of skin. No text-only drawings. Diagrams of bodies being taken apart. Not for death, for repurposing, like they weren't people, just raw material. A man stepped out from behind the pulpit. Old, gaunt, skin tight over bone, as if he'd been tanned in his own church. One eye missing, the other a milky, dead gray. He didn't blink. You saw the bone room, he rasped. You understand now. I asked what they were doing with the parts. He laughed. Everything in Wakefield is made from sacrifice. The roads, the water, the air, the people. You've eaten us already. You just didn't know what was on the plate. I asked if Ash was alive. He shook his head, then nodded, then said something I'll never forget. Your cousin is plural now. I backed out of the church, ran down the street to the butcher shop. I don't know what I was thinking. Maybe I thought I'd find a piece of ash I could take home. Maybe I just wanted to set the whole place on fire. The front door was open again. No one inside. Just butcher paper scattered across the floor. Blood still wet on the counter. A path of it leading toward the back. I followed it. Past the hooks. Past the room of jars. Back to the cold storage. The walk-in freezer. The door creaked open as I approached, and for the first time, I saw the butcher. He stood with his back to me, 7 feet tall, broad as two men stitched together, a leather apron soaked in old blood, a hood over his head stitched across the eyes, but the mouth exposed. Huge, grinning, not in welcome, in hunger. He spoke without turning. His voice was low, guttural, wet. You brought a good smell with you. I didn't move. Couldn't. He lifted something from the table in front of him, an arm, clean to the elbow. Fingers still twitching. He sniffed it. This one screamed with your voice, tried to say your name. couldn't remember how. Then he turned. The mask covered his face, but not the eyes behind it. They were ashes, one swollen, one ruptured, but still staring straight at me. I ran, back through the shop, out into the street. But the town was different again. Smaller, the sky too low. The sun didn't rise, it just hung, like a bulb over a slab of meat. Everyone stood on their porches now, watching, silent, no expression. One by one, they raised their hands, fingers out, then bent them slowly into hooks, like they were claiming me. I got in the car and drove. Didn't matter where. Every turn led back to the square, the gas station, the steeple, the butcher's shop. My cousin's face on the wall, now joined by another. Mine, eyes hollow, mouth sewn shut. Below it, written in thick red paint, processing soon. I tore my own face off the wall, ripped it down with shaking hands, nails digging into plaster until they bled. Underneath the dried paint, I saw another layer dozens of faces beneath mine, faded, warped, screaming. Some were children, some were old. All of them had the same stitched mouth, all of them labeled with numbers. Mine was the highest, subject 17. I wasn't just the next one. I was the last. I tried to leave. Again. Packed my bag, keys ready, engine cold. But the car wouldn't start. Not a dead battery, not engine trouble, nothing. Like the ignition had been swallowed by the town itself. I popped the hood and found the engine block coated in fat, rendered fat, greasy, slick, smelling like smoked ham and something deeply wrong. On the windshield, smeared in that same substance. You can walk in, you crawl out. I walked back into town, hands shaking, heartbeat uneven. I wasn't sure what scared me more, that I couldn't leave, or that a part of me didn't want to anymore. I passed the church again. A woman stood on the steps this time, naked, covered in scars. Her arms were wrapped in red butcher tape, pinning her flesh into tight bundles, like meat prepped for smoking. Her face was gone a mask, made of someone else's lips stretched over hers. But she spoke. "Have you given yet?" I didn't answer. She stepped forward, whispered in a voice that was half mine. "They don't always take the same thing. Sometimes it's skin, sometimes bone, sometimes memories." She leaned closer. Her breath was hot. "You'll give them your fear first. That's the starter cut." I wandered until I reached the back of the butcher shop. There was a gate I hadn't noticed before chain link, bent open at the center. Beyond it, a gravel path led to what looked like a barn, low, silent, doors sealed with thick black plastic. The wind shifted as I approached, and the scent that hit me nearly dropped me to my knees. Burnt cartilage, boiled marrow, steamed hair. I pulled the plastic aside and stepped in. Inside was not a barn. It was a staging room. Rows of lockers, hooks, steel tables with restraints. A drain in the center that looked clogged with hair and ash. And on the far wall, a single metal door marked Initiation, painted beside it in blood-red strokes. The body gives, the mind follows. I heard movement behind me, and froze. A gurney rolled out from the corner, pushed by a shape too tall to be human, wearing a white coat soaked through with grease and something darker. The sleeves were too long. Its hands were covered in mesh gloves, fingertips dripping. It didn't speak, didn't look at me. It just pointed to the door. Initiation. I moved without meaning to, like the fear had taken my spine and started walking it forward. Inside was a chair. I recognized it from the first lab, bolted to the floor, restraints open, blade on the tray beside it, next to a needle, a vial, and a voice recorder labeled 17. They had a slot waiting for me. The shape didn't follow me in. It waited outside, watching. I didn't sit, not yet, but my name was already echoing through the speaker overhead. Not mine, Ash's voice, saying it over and over, whimpering, crying, begging, please don't let them make me. Please, please take it instead. The tape stopped. Then a second voice, deeper, wrong. The butcher. 16 failed containment, but their voice lives on. You'll take what's left. The vial began to glow, pulsing red. I backed away, but the chair moved toward me, just a few inches, scraping, inviting. Then I saw heighten the tray, a second label under the needle. Memory sync, organ match required. It wasn't just harvesting flesh. It was syncing minds, taking one person's pain and planting it in the next. I turned to run. The door slammed shut. The lights went out, and in the dark, something pressed against the back of my head. Not a hand, not a weapon, a mouth. It whispered, "You belong here now. Give something." I woke up in my motel bed, sweating, panting, but my arm was bandaged. Not like a dream, like I'd been operated on. I tore the wrap away and found something new carved into the meat of my forearm. Butcher's mark, 17. Underneath, in tiny letters, cut 1 complete, 6 more to go. The bandage was soaked through when I woke, thick, rust-colored blood. But it wasn't fresh. It didn't feel like mine. My skin wasn't raw. It wasn't even sore. Just numb. I pressed my fingers against the carved Mark Butcher's mark, 17, and felt nothing. No pain, no nerves. Just a blank space where my body used to be connected to itself. Cut 1 complete. I had no memory of what they took, but I could tell something was missing. My voice cracked when I tried to speak. Not dry, not hoarse. Wrong. The syllables hit the air like they didn't belong to me. I said my name out loud. It sounded hollow, off, like hearing a recording of yourself for the first time, but worse, unfamiliar. In the motel bathroom, I stood in front of the mirror and tried to hold my own gaze. I couldn't. My pupils dilated unevenly. My smile lagged. My right eye wouldn't blink unless I forced it. I wasn't just tired. I was wrong. I walked outside. The motel parking lot was empty. Cars gone. The office locked. No staff, no guests. No sound but the wind cutting between the buildings like a knife. At the edge of the lot, someone had written across the side of my car in something thick and dark, "Starter cut, Voice, next, sense. Next to it, pinned under a piece of broken mirror, was one of Ash's old earrings, still warm, still twitching, like it remembered the ear it came from. I ran back into town. The streets were crowded, now people I hadn't seen before. Dozens of them, standing shoulder to shoulder, all facing the butcher shop. Their mouths were sewn shut, their arms bound in red tape. None of them moved, but I could hear them breathing, loud, in sync, like one thing wearing many skins. I slipped between them. No one stopped me. Inside the butcher shop, the lights were off. The floor was wet. I followed the smear of footprints leading behind the counter into the cutting room. The bone room was open, but different. The skulls were gone. The ash swept clean. Now the walls were covered in drawings. Me, 17 versions. Each one missing something. Eyes, tongue, skin, lungs, nerves. The last one at the bottom was just a shadow, drawn in thick red ink. Below it, empty. Perfect. The freezer door creaked open on its own. Inside, a table. The same one I'd seen before. But this time, someone was strapped to it. Not a stranger. Me or a copy. Same clothes, same scar. Mouth open in a silent scream. Chest rising, barely. I approached slowly. Its eyes opened. My voice came out. Cut me again. Finish what you started. I stepped back, slipped, hit the floor. The freezer door slammed shut behind me, and the light above the table flickered on. A speaker in the wall crackled. The butcher's voice. You gave your voice? Now give your fear. We cut it out slow. A needle dropped from the ceiling on a chain. It swung back and forth, dripping. The copy on the table began to thrash. Still smiling, its fingers clenched. One nail broke off. It looked at me. We don't scream anymore. We just become. The needle dropped right into the clone's chest. It spasmed once, then went still, and from the drain beneath the table, steam rose. The room smelled like copper and smoke. The speaker whispered again. Starter cut complete. Fear removed. Next, memory. I slammed my fists against the door, yelled, begged. But when I finally broke through, wasn't the butcher shop behind it. It was the church, burning. Inside, the pews were full. People turned toward me one by one, all of them wearing my face, smiling, bleeding from the eyes, and above the pulpit, dangling from the hook where the cross used to hang ash, but not whole. Their chest had been open, rib cage splayed like wings, their heart missing. In its place, a speaker playing my voice on loop. I'm fine. Talk soon. I woke up in the woods, naked. No wounds, no blood, just the smell of smoke in my hair and the taste of metal in my throat. And carved into the dirt around me, like a circle of protectioner, a cage, cut too complete. I walked for what felt like hours, through brush, then briar, then trees that didn't grow right. Their bark was cracked like flesh after flame. No birds, no bugs, just wind whispering my name in a voice that wasn't mine anymore. I didn't know where I was going. Worse, I didn't remember where I'd been. Every step made my mind feel softer, like thought itself was bruising inside me. I tried to think of Ash, their face, their laugh, gone. When I tried to picture them, I saw smoke. When I thought about why I came to Wakefield, I heard only one word echoing in my skull. Stay. At the edge of the forest, I found a cabin. Rotten roof, door barely clinging to its hinges. The walls were tagged in red handprints, not paint blood, dry and cracked. Inside, the floor was covered in papers, receipts, journals, drawings, photos, all of them familiar, all of them mine. Birthday cards from people I couldn't name. Pictures of places I recognized but couldn't place. My handwriting scrawled across hundreds of pages, but every line blurred when I tried to read it. And at the center of the room, nailed to the floor with meat hooks, a brain, split clean down the middle, still warm, still twitching, hooked up to wires, connected to a wall of screen seats showing memories. Mine, but wrong. I watched one screen show my first kiss, but it wasn't me. Another played a childhood birthday, party surrounded by people with blank faces, clapping silently. And in every one, at the edge of the frame, just barely in view, the butcher, standing still, watching, waiting. A speaker above the screens crackled. You don't need all of it, just enough to stay obedient. The screens went blank. Then one turned on again. A static-filled hallway. Someone walking toward a metal door. The view got closer. I realized it was the processing room. Then I saw the person. Their back to the camera. Same walk, same clothes, same scar. Me, I watched myself knock on the door, wait, then enter, smiling, willing. A loud clang broke through the static. The floor shook. Chains somewhere behind the walls started to rattle. The brain twitched harder. The wires sparked. Something in the cabin screamed. A voice I didn't recognize. Keep your name. Cut the rest. I ran out of the cabin, through the woods, toward the only building left I hadn't stepped inside. The old schoolhouse. The windows were boarded, the sign out front painted over. I kicked in the door. Inside. Desks turned to meat blocks. Chalkboards smeared in dried gore. Children's coats hanging like flayed hides. And at the front of the room, a guillotine, polished, prepared. Beside it, a wooden table with one item, a cleaver. Old, heavy, its handle wrapped in human hair. Beside it, written on the table in chalk, cut what holds you back. I didn't want to touch it, but my hands did anyway. As soon as I gripped the cleaver, the room filled with noise, laughter, weeping, voices yelling my name. Every memory I'd ever buried came back at once. Ash, screaming in the cold, my first broken heart. My father, face down in a bathtub, my own voice begging not to forget. It overwhelmed me, until one voice broke through it all. Soft, clear. Ash, please don't let them make you like me. The light snapped off, then back on. The guillotine was gone, replaced by a mirror. but the reflection didn't move like me. It cocked its head, raised the cleaver, spoke in my voice. You only need one memory to stay. Pick it. Suddenly, 3 photos dropped from the ceiling, floating gently onto the floor. 1. Me and Ash on the road, smiling. 2. A birthday dinner, laughter. 3. A funeral, closed casket. My mother, the speaker, whispered, Vic, the other 2 get cut. I bent down. My fingers hovered over the road trip photo. My hand wouldn't close. I looked at the birthday, then the funeral. All of them blurred. The mirror reflection raised the cleaver. So did I. 1 memory to keep. 2 to clean. I made my choice. Swung. Everything went white. When I opened my eyes, I was back outside, standing in front of the butcher shop, covered in sweat, barefoot, the cleaver still in my hand. 1 photo tucked into my pocket. I pulled it out. The image was blank. No people, no faces, just a stretch of road, endless, empty, and under it, written in black grease pencil, cut 3 complete. I didn't walk into the butcher shop. I was already inside. I don't remember crossing the street. I don't remember pushing the door open or stepping into the smell. I just opened my eyes and saw the hooks again. The table. The paper slick with fresh meat. The floor was warm. My breath fogged the air, but it wasn't cold. There was something burning below. Some furnace beneath the floor, heating the room like a body kept alive through pain alone. The table was prepped, instruments laid out like silver fingers, waiting to touch something tender. Knives, spreaders, pincers, hooks, a bowl of brine next to a rag made from skin, not tanned, fresh, still sweating. The butcher stood at the back. No mask today, just muscle and bone, stitched in spirals from chin to temple. No eyes-only stitched lids that pulsed like they were watching anyway. His jaw clicked when he moved. Metal pinned the corners of his mouth into something that wasn't quite a smile. He raised 1 hand, then pointed at the table. Cut 4, he said. Time to see what you've kept. I shook my head, stepped back, but the floor shifted under my feet, tilted forward, slid me toward the table like a slab of meat too slick to hold still. I tried to fight it. My arms moved, but sluggish, like my bones were damp wood and my nerves had been replaced with twine. The last cut took more than memory. It took coordination, will. The butcher grabbed my jaw with 1 hand and pulled me forward. His palm was warm, his fingers wet. He leaned close, whispered, We carve the truth now. I don't remember screaming, but my mouth was open. My throat was raw when I woke up. I was strapped to the table, bare from the waist up. My chest cut open, but not with violence, with reverence, clean lines, no blood, no pain. Inside my own ribs were scraps of paper, dozens, some soaked in brine, some dry and crumbling. He reached in with his bare hand and began pulling them out, reading each one aloud. June 14th, birthday, forgotten. Ashes left, expired. Fear of drowning, irrelevant. crust, spoiled, each one. He tossed into the furnace beneath the table. Each one hissed like a dying breath until he pulled out a piece that glowed, still warm, still beating. He held it up. The words pulsed with every flicker of heat. Love. He paused, turned it in his hand, then tucked it back inside me. He stitched me up slowly, not like a doctor, like a chef, sealing meat for the smoker. When he finished, he patted my chest and leaned in again. You're almost clean, but we still need your name. I passed out, woke up in the church again, lying on a stone altar. Candles burned in circles around me, their flames all pointed inward. Every pew filled, every seat taken by someone wearing my old face, each one a different version. Me in school, me on the road, me at my worst, me after ash vanished, me from yesterday still hopeful, me from tomorrow already hollow. They stared, didn't blink, didn't move, and then, in unison, they spoke. We kept your name warm. Say it, or you become us. The butcher stepped from behind the altar, now wearing robes made of old muscle. He held a tray. On it, a cleaver, a branding iron, and a mirror. You made it to cut 4, he said. You should be proud. Most scream themselves useless before 3. I asked him why. Why me? Why ash? Why any of it? He tilted his head. His stitched eyelids rippled. We need meat, but we need memory more. He stepped closer. Meat rots, but stories feed the town. Screams echo. Names endure. That's why you're here. He pointed the branding iron at the mirror. Say your name. Look at who you are. Or let us burn something better into you. I stepped forward, looked into the mirror, and saw nothing. No face, no name, just meat, waiting for the next cut. And behind me, a hook slowly lowering from the ceiling. The mirror didn't lie. It didn't show my face because I didn't have one anymore. Not the real one. Not the one I came in with. What stared back from the glass was meat wrapped in memory, blinking just enough to stay alive. Behind me, the hook creaked on its descent. The butcher stood at the altar, holding the brand. A symbol burned at its tip. 3 circles spiraled into a single point, like a butcher's knot or a draining eye. It pulsed orange in the candlelight, dripping with heat. Speak, he said, or I make you something else. I opened my mouth, but the sound died in my throat. Not fear, not resistance, emptiness. My true name was lost somewhere in the cuts. Buried in the ash they scraped from my ribs, hidden inside that blank photo I kept in my pocket. I tried anyway. It came out cracked. Not my voice. Not the one I'd lived with. Something borrowed. The butcher stepped closer. Say it clean. 1 cut left. Let us sear it into your skin, or let the silence take you whole. The hook behind me dropped. Close. I heard the chains rattle, smelled the old blood dried on the steel. It brushed against the back of my neck like a hand testing temperature. The butcher raised the brand. This is your proof. Once marked, Wakefield keeps you. No more wandering. No more forgetting. You'll be meat with a name. He offered me a choice. Hold the brand. Burn it into my own skin. Speak my name while it hisses into flesh. Claim myself, or don't, and be taken. Folded, tossed onto the slab like every other subject before me. I stepped forward. My hands were shaking. The brand radiated through my fingertip sheet that wasn't fire, but memory. It made my heart race with thoughts I didn't know I still had. Ash, the road, a song playing on an old tape deck. My hands on the wheel, my voice calling their name into the wind before the signal dropped. Say it, the butcher whispered. Say it or lose it. I raised the brand, pressed it against my chest. The pain was instant, blinding. It tore through muscle like white fire. I screamed, but the sound didn't come from my throat. It came from every version of me, every subject in the pews, every face they wore. They screamed with me, echoed me, matched pitch and breath like one broken choir. And above the agony I roared. My name is, but I couldn't finish it. Not fully. Because as the brand hissed into my skin, something changed. The name blurred, mid-syllable, like the letters were still mine, but no longer in the right order. And when the metal finally cooled, I looked down. What it left wasn't my name. It was the number 17, branded across my heart. The butcher stepped back. He looked satisfied. He turned to the pews. All the versions of me had gone still. One by one, they stood, walked into the aisle, and filed out, leaving the church in silence. No moaning, no chains, no fight, like they knew this was the final cut. I was the last. Subject 17, and the meat was complete. Outside, Wakefield was quiet. No people, no smoke, no voices, only the wind through butchered trees and the buzz of insects feeding on old blood. My car sat at the edge of the dirt road, keys in the ignition, door open. I walked toward it, every step lighter, not because I was free, but because I wasn't anything anymore. The memory was gone. The fear was carved. The voice gutted. Only the brand remained, a mark for whatever comes next. I got in the car, turned the key. It started on the first try. The rear view mirror was clean. No reflections, just the back of the butcher shop, door shut, lights off, meat hanging in the window like it never stopped moving. I drove, didn't look back, didn't stop. The road opened like it had been waiting, and behind me, somewhere deep in the burning trees, I heard the whisper again. One more cut. The road didn't curve again for 40 minutes. Not once. It was straight, endless, familiar, in a way that made my stomach churn. I should have felt relief. I should have called someone, anyone. But when I looked at my phone, the screen was dead. Not off. Not broken. Blank. No icons. No time. Just white. And when I looked up at the sky, it was the same color. The world had drained itself of contrast. Even the trees looked quiet, like they'd lost the will to move. That's when the smell started. Meat. Rotten, coming from inside the car. I pulled over, opened the door and heaved into the gravel. Something was wrong. Something inside me. The brand on my chest was weeping, oozing thick yellow fluid that clung to the inside of my shirt like wet rope. I peeled the fabric away and saw the skin around the mark had turned gray. Not bruised, dead. I reached for it with my finger sand, felt something move beneath, like a twitch, like a muscle that didn't belong, like something adjusting. Then it pushed. A small bulge swelled just under the surface. It pulsed once, then disappeared. I drove again, didn't care where. The landscape shifted the further I went. More signs of life. Buildings, street signs, a bus stop, a truck stop, diner. I pulled in, dizzy, shivering, weak. The waitress smiled when I walked in. A real smile. No missing fingers. No stitched face. No smell of smoke or meat. I sat at the counter. She poured coffee. Said, "You okay, hon? You look pale." I tried to speak, but my voice cracked. Still not mine. I cleared my throat and managed one word. Water. She nodded, walked away, and I looked down. There was a fly swimming in my coffee, wings soaked, legs twitching. But it wasn't a fly. Not really. Its wings were stitched. Its thorax was pink, too pink, fleshy, and where its eyes should have been were 2 human fingernails. I shoved the cup off the counter. The waitress didn't react, just placed the water in front of me like nothing happened. "You smell like death," she said softly, not facing me. Not the kind that ends, the kind that lingers. I ran to the bathroom, locked the door, tore my shirt off. The brand was spreading, not the wound, the mark. Lines were curling outward from the number 17 in jagged spirals, running up my neck and down my ribs like veins filled with ink. I touched it, felt heat, felt breath. Then something moved behind my eye. No pain, just pressure, like a worm turning in soil. And when I looked in the mirror, Ash was staring back. But not just Ash. Me, both of us, fused. The face blinked with one of my eyes and one of theirs. It opened its mouth, didn't speak. Just let something fall from its lips. A tooth. I turned around. No one there. Turned back. The mirror was shattered. I left the diner. Didn't pay. Didn't speak. Didn't run. I just walked to the car and drove. My stomach twisted with every mile. By the time I reached the next town, I couldn't feel my hands. The skin was hardening, cracking, like jerky left in the sun. I parked behind a gas station and stumbled into the bathroom. Locked the door again. Stared at myself in the scratched mirror. And I knew what I had to do. I took the hunting knife from my trunk, laid out paper towels on the sink, unbuttoned my shirt. The brand covered half my chest now, the center still pulsing, still twitching. I pressed the knife to the skin and sliced, screamed once, then gagged, because what slid out from beneath the flesh wasn't blood, it wasn't muscle, it was awful, literal meat, ground, processed, gray and pink, marbled like pork sausage, packed into my body like it had always been there. Steam rose from the cut, a smell I'll never forget. Cooked flesh, seasoned, savory, something prepared, something cured. On the mirror, written in the condensation, "You're becoming the cut." I passed out, woke up 2 hours later on the bathroom floor. The wound was gone. No blood, no scar, but the knife was still wet, and my mouth tasted like fat and iron and smoke, and in the reflection, I wasn't breathing. Not really. I was settling. I don't know how long I laid on that gas station floor. Time stopped keeping score days ago. Maybe weeks, maybe longer. But I remember the smell when I came to. It was always the smell that woke me. Fat, burning, cooking slowly inside me. I sat up and realized my mouth was wet not with spit, with grease. I spat on the floor. The puddles shimmered, thick and yellow. Not bile, tallow. The butcher was winning. Not because I stayed, not because I lost, but because I came back with the brand still burning. I looked in the mirror again. Same dead eyes, same stiff skin. But something had changed. The veins around my chest had begun to recede, like the brand was drawing blood away from the rest of me, feeding, concentrating. My heart beat slow and heavy, like it was pounding through oil instead of blood. And when I pressed my palm to the wall, I left a handprint of lard. I got back in the car. Didn't speak, didn't think. I drove west. The roads were long and cracked, humming under the tires like they were singing to me. A butcher's lullaby. Every few miles, I passed a roadkill carcass, always fresh, always steaming, always arranged. One was a deer with its ribs pried open and stuffed with flowers. Another, a coyote, skinned with surgical precision. A third, a human hand nailed to a fence post with a note pinned to the knuckle. "You're almost tender enough." At sundown, I found the motel, not the one from before. This one was different, still neon lit, still humming with vacancy. But something told me I was expected. The O in motel flickered red, then dark, then red again. I stepped inside the lobby. No one at the counter, but the key was waiting. Room 17. Of course, I took it and walked the hall. The carpet squished beneath my boots like raw liver. The walls pulsed slightly, as if breathing. Inside room 17 was a meat hook, just one, hanging from the ceiling in the center of the room, and below it, a chair, an apron, a boning knife, and a photo album. I sat, opened the album. Inside were pictures I didn't take, of me, of Ash, of every person who came before, each one a subject, posed in stages. Cut 1, voice. Cut 2, fear. Cut 3, memory. Cut 4, identity. Cut 5, awful. Cut 6, render. Cut 7, final carve. I turned to the next page. It was blank, just a square marked Cut 6 pending completion. Beside it, a note in the butcher's handwriting. Rendering is a process. The fire has to soften the truth. Stay warm. Stay still. We'll finish you soon. That night, I couldn't sleep. My skin itched from the inside. I felt it under my ribs again shifting, liquefying, like something was melting my insides down to a base stock. My teeth ached. My joints cracked like old wood. I pulled off my shirt and saw the brand had changed again. It no longer said 17. It just said, mate. I screamed, not out loud, just inward, a sound that folded in on itself, trapped in my throat like blood that refused to clot. I grabbed the boning knife, stood under the hook, raised the blade, and waited. The next morning, the motel clerk found me asleep in the chair, still breathing, still human, but barely. She didn't ask what I was doing. She just smiled, reached into her apron, and handed me a receipt. Wakefield thanks you. At the bottom, it said, 1 rendered. Subject 17. Final cut. Soon, I drove again. This time, slower. My shadow lagged behind. And when I reached the edge of town, I passed a billboard I hadn't seen before, painted over, crudely, dripping red, but still legible. Wakefield Meat Co. Hand cut, locally sourced. You've already tasted us. Underneath, someone had carved a word into the wood. Stay. I kept driving, but the road was starting to rot. The trees sagged with meat bags. The air thickened like steam from a pot. And in the distance, I saw the butcher, standing in the middle of the next mile, holding something in both hands. My face. He stood in the road, holding my face in both hands. Not a mask, not a replica. Mine. Cheekbones, scars, a crooked smile from when I split my lip as a kid, even the faint old burn mark behind my jaw from a cigarette I wasn't supposed to have. It was me, only hollowed, flensed, stretched and dried like jerky wrapped around bone. And when the butcher lifted it to his own face, it stuck without strings, melted into place, like it had always belonged there. Ready for the last cut, he said, now speaking in my voice. I backed up, but the road behind me was gone. Not blocked, erased. The gravel faded into a field of flesh-colored dirt, soft and steaming. Every tree wilted inward like overcooked sinew. The horizon pulsed red. And behind the butcher, a hook hung from the sky itself. Black chain stretching from clouds I couldn't see. At its end, a loop, big enough for a throat. I reached for the knife in my belt. It wasn't there. Gone. No weight. No steel. Just the brand still burning on my chest, now shaped into a hook itself seared into my skin in a spiral. The butcher walked toward me, slow, heavy, wearing my voice, wearing my skin. You've already been eaten, he said. Now you just need to know it. I turned and ran. No direction. Just away. But every step sank deeper. The ground was thick, meaty, each footprint filled with blood, and below it I heard chewing. I dropped to my knees, gasping, and from the dirt rose something familiar. Ash, not alive, not human, but pieced together. eyes stitched from two different faces, teeth missing, jaw slack. But they spoke. It doesn't stop. You just stop noticing. He doesn't take your life. He takes the part of you that says no. They reached into their chest, pulled something out, a bone, handed it to me. My femur? I didn't feel pain. Just wait. Ash smiled with my smile. Then collapsed into steam. The butcher stood over me now, hook in hand, chain coiled like veins down his arm. He pointed at my chest. One more cut, deep enough to open the door. He raised the hook, but before it fell, I grabbed the bone, raised it like a blade, and swung. It cracked into his mask-me face. The impact split the skin, revealed raw red muscle beneath. No bone, just gristle. He dropped the hook, staggered, said nothing, just hissed like meat hitting fire. And then he melted, right there on the road, collapsed into a puddle of meat. Organs, grease, a puddle that whispered, "Cut 7 complete." I stood alone. The chain still swung above. The hook still waited, but no one held it now. It drifted toward me, slow, inviting. I looked down at my hands. I was disappearing. My fingers had no nails. My palms were pink, soft, flesh ready for the grinder. I turned back toward the horizon, and it was open. A straight road, not paved, not dirt, something new. I walked it, barefoot, leaving no tracks. Not because I wasn't there, but because there was nothing left to leave behind. At the end of the road, I found a mirror, tall, clean, framed in butcher's steel. I looked inside and saw nothing. No skin, no blood, just a shape, a presence, a slab, ready, carved, labeled. On the corner of the mirror, engraved in the glass, Subject 17, final cut completed, product ready for service. And behind me, footsteps, not boots, not bare, hooves, slow, wet, growing louder. The hooves stopped behind me. I didn't turn. I couldn't, not out of fear, but because there was no longer a me to turn. My hands were gone, my chest hollowed. Everything I once was had been scooped out, replaced, rendered, but I still stood. Reflex, maybe, or the last twitch of meat too stubborn to lay down. Before the mirror, I waited. My reflection was gone. In its place, the image of a long wooden table, a feast, a butcher's spread, meat carved into perfect symmetry, tongues rolled like napkins, eyes arranged in pairs soaked in vinegar, hands peeled and glazed, bones filed to decorative points, a heart split and roasted steam rising from the valve like a candle. And seated around the table, everyone. Ash, the other subjects, the townsfolk, the preacher from the church, the waitress with missing fingers, even the clerk from the motel, all wearing my face, every version of it, every age, every wound, every sin. They didn't speak, they didn't eat, They just stared across the table at a single empty chair. Mine. The mirror. Cracked. One clean line down the center. I blinked, and I was at the table, seated, whole again, but not right. I was too clean, too smooth. My hands were pale and boneless. I touched my face. It sank inward like fat under pressure. Ash sat across from me. They looked beautiful, untouched, wearing the version of themselves I remembered best. They smiled. "You ready now?" they said. "You made it through the cuts." I tried to speak. My mouth didn't move. Ash leaned in. "Don't talk. Just listen. This is your wake." The butcher stood at the head of the table, not stitched, not scarred, now clean, polished, wearing a suit of muscle and memory, his face no longer mine but everyone. He raised a carving knife, sliced the air, and the feast began. They served one another pieces of me. I served me. Ash took a slice of heart. The preacher gnawed on my thigh. The waitress buttered a piece of my tongue on rye. I watched, numb, not in pain, just resigned. This was always the end. The final cut wasn't about blood. It was about giving everything. I looked down at my plate. One last piece, uncut, raw, still pulsing. My name, sitting there like a fruit, waiting to be split open. I picked up the knife and cut it in half. The moment the blade touched it, everything stopped. The lights went out. The table vanished. The guests faded. The meat dissolved. And I was standing in a field, empty, silent, just me. No blood, no body, no brand. Just a wind that carried a scent I couldn't name, something between smoke, salt, and fresh rain on old dirt. The sun rose, real this time. No filter, no fog, no hooks. A clean sky, and a trail ahead. I walked it, one step, then another, each one lighter. No shadow, no weight. But when I looked over my shoulder, Wakefield was still there, always there, at the edge of every memory, waiting, hungry, not cruel, just patient. The butcher doesn't chase. He doesn't have to, because once you've tasted him, he stays in you. And me, I stayed gone, not missing, not dead, just processed. Ash once told me, the worst kind of death is the one where you still move afterward. Now I understand, because I walk, I breathe, I sleep, but I'm not mine anymore. I belong to something bigger, something older, something fed. If you ever see Wakefield on a map, burn the map. If you smelled pork when there's no fire, run the other way. And if someone calls your name in your own voice, don't answer. Because the butcher remembers the ones who get away, and he only needs one more cut.